Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Eche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
Government says that subsidy is not in oil, and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil.
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, is abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, what a beautiful day, another great day, another opportunity for us to look at issues related to business, finance, national development, and the economy. This is Early Exchange, and I am Femi Ayodele. Always my pleasure to be your host, and I'm glad to host you this morning. Don't forget that today we'll be looking at infant mortality. Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. That's our obligation. Don't forget, this is also your program. It means you can go on our social media platform, on our YouTube platform, to share your view on the topic using the hashtag Early Exchange. We hope that as you spend the next 3 hours with us, we'll make your day worthwhile, we'll make your day memorable, and even make it productive. All right, let's set the ball rolling now. We're switching over to our new studio, where Adesra is standing by to take us around the world with news update. Adesra, good morning, and how are you today?
Good morning to you, Femi, and greetings to you, our viewers, and a warm welcome to the morning news update right here on SIG News, where we shape policies and advance development. I'm Adesua Iromoseli. To kick off, we delve into the key highlights of today's bulletin. Nigeria and Kuwait sign MOU to boost aviation sector. Edo State empowers 500 entrepreneurs with agricultural capital. Kenyan court temporarily halts privatization of state-owned companies. EU pushes for rules to guide artificial intelligence. We begin in Nigeria. The federal government concluded a bilateral air service agreement with the state of Kuwait to foster increased connectivity and economic collaboration. The signing ceremony, led by Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development Festus Keyamo, took place during the International Civil Aviation Organization (ICAO) meeting in Riyadh. Keyamo highlighted the agreement's significance in enhancing relations between the two nations, describing it as a landmark moment in diplomatic ties. The minister also stressed the government's commitment to advancing Nigeria's global aviation presence and building robust relations with nations worldwide. The Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Ali Pate, has urged radiologists to address the challenges impeding data security to mitigate the rising litigation from patients. Speaking during the 6th Annual General Meeting and Scientific Conference of the Association of Radiologists in Nigeria and the 60th AGM of the Association of Radiologists in West Africa, he highlighted issues such as the manpower deficit, poorly regulated radioactive practices, and insufficient technological innovations. Pate also stressed the importance of guarding against leakages of patients' information and deploying efficient technology to prevent unauthorized access, while acknowledging the increasing litigation in the practice due to patients' awareness of their rights. He stressed the need for responsible data management and accurate diagnosis in disease management. Stakeholders have stressed the vital role of effective soil and water management in enhancing food production across the country. They gave this insight at an expert dialogue in Abuja to commemorate the 2023 World Soil Day. Participants noted that soil and water conservation not only contributes to climate change mitigation and adaptation, but also bolsters the land's resilience against extreme climate events like drought, flood, and dust storms. With the theme Soil and Water, a Source of Life, this year's celebration underscores the significance of maintaining healthy soil and adopting sustainable soil resources management. About 500 women and youths in Edo State have received agricultural working capital through the federal government Livelihood Improvement Family Enterprises Niger Delta project, supported by the International Fund for Agricultural Development (IFAD) in collaboration with NDDC. The federal government and Niger Delta Development Commission program provided working capital, including various inputs such as generating sets, deep freezers, defeathering machines, mini haulage tricycle, motorized sprayers, insecticide, herbicides, fertilizers, day-old chicks, poultry feed, and improved rice seed varieties. The state coordinator of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, Samuel Owoicho, and John Omoruyi, the state project coordinator of Life ND project, underlined the distribution's role as it relates with poverty alleviation and food security promotion in the country. In a bid to prevent animal-borne diseases in Oyo State, the state government has implemented a standard operating procedure for poultry processing farmers. The procedure, encompassing all aspects of poultry processing from chicken procurement to slaughter, transportation, and package, will serve as comprehensive guidelines focusing on food safety, quality control, and veterinary regulatory compliances. Oyo State Commissioner for Agriculture Olusukomi Olaleye explained that chicken plants and slaughterhouses must be accredited and licensed before operation and must adhere to the Oyo State meat law. He added that the move aims to sanitize the poultry business, ensure safety of citizens, eradicate animal-borne disease, as well as eliminate quackery. Kenya Apex Bank has revealed that the country is poised to secure a fresh $1 billion loan from China within this financial year, potentially utilizing the funds to partially settle a euro bond maturing in June. While the exact timing remains uncertain, the loan announcement marked a notable shift in government stance on Chinese lending. The National Treasury is in talks with the Chinese government with plans to address the Eurobond maturity if loan is secured before June 2024. Additionally, the country aims to manage its $2 billion hard currency bond maturity with recent agreement with the IMF expanding its borrowing capacity. A Kenyan court has temporarily halted the privatization of 11 state-owned companies, including the National Oil and Gas Company, following an appeal by the main opposition party. The court decision, handed down by High Court Judge Chacha Mwita, cited constitutional and legal issues of public importance raised by the opposition, led by Raila Odinga. Odinga argued that the sale of state holdings should be subject to a referendum due to the strategic importance of the companies. The sale process has been suspended until February 6, pending a thorough examination of the case. The move is part of President William Ruto's plan to privatize 35 public companies to address the economic downturn. We'll take a breather now and return with more stories. Stay with us.
My name is Olatunji Shoti Miri. I'm a performing artist and, television radio presenter and a university lecturer, Unilag. Keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Black, Africa's finest music comedian, and you're watching Sook News. If you're not watching Sook News, I pity you, but keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Timmy Dakolo, and you're watching Sook News. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Wisdom Oluwaseun Okoko, co-founder Orbit Africa Properties. I'm live at Sook News. Guys, keep watching Sook News for everything that concerns business, economy, politics, news. Sook News is your station.
Welcome back. A potential ban on the importation of used clothes by Ugandan authorities could have severe consequences for the livelihoods. President Yoweri Museveni has expressed a desire to promote African clothing by declaring war on second-hand clothing primarily imported from the United States and Europe. Owino Market, which engages around 80,000 people, is now at risk. Critics argue that banning the importation of second-hand clothes could adversely affect the majority of Ugandans who cannot afford new clothes, and it could disrupt a trade that benefits both sellers and the government, which collects taxes. The environmental cost of new clothing production is also cited. Authorities are considering the ban, reviewing it in January, and offering incentives to investors as part of a gradual shift away from second-hand clothing. Argentina's president-elect Javier Milei has chosen a trusted ally of his future economy minister to head the country's central bank. The main objective of this appointment is to address the issues of a significant amount of local currency debt, as well as to lift currency control and potentially introduce the US dollar as an alternative to the peso in the future. The selection of Santiago Busili, who is a close friend of incoming economy minister Luis Caputo, was officially announced by Milei's spokesperson pending Senate approval. This decision marks a significant expansion of Caputo's economic team to enact austerity measures and combat inflation. ExxonMobil has outlined an annual project spending target ranging from $22 billion to $27 billion through 2027 in its latest update, maintaining existing spending and production goals. Notably, the plan excludes anticipated gains from the impending $60 billion acquisition of Pioneer Natural Resources, which awaits closure in the coming year and is currently under scrutiny by the U.S. Federal Trade Commission. The acquisition of Pioneer, aimed at tripling production in the top U.S. shale field, is part of Exxon's strategy alongside the $4.9 billion Denbury acquisition to strengthen its carbon business. The production forecast for 2024 is set at 3.8 million barrels of oil equivalent per day, showcasing Exxon's strategic focus on the Permian Shale Basin and Guyana for growth. The Germany Economic Institute has urged the European Union to collaborate with African nations in overhauling the World Trade Organization subsidy rule as a strategic measure against Chinese market distortions and diplomatic influence. Published ahead of the EU-China summit, the paper processes extended the reform initiative to tighten subsidy regulations for major global trade countries based on their share of global trade or income level. Despite the organizations classifying China as a developing country, the proposed rules would apply, potentially pressuring China to accept reforms and curbing the escalating global subsidy competition. The WTO's 13th Ministerial Conference in February is expected to address subsidy rule reform, requiring consensus for substantive changes. World Bank President Ajay Banga has urged member countries to contribute to the next replenishment of the Lenders Fund for the world's poorest nations, making it the largest in history. Speaking at the midterm review of the 20th International Development Association replenishment in Zanzibar, Tanzania, Banga noted that the strain on the fund due to increasing demand and called for increased concessional resources. He highlighted the need for creative financial solutions and stressed that IDA's limits are being pushed, requiring a substantial increase in funding. The current 20th IDA funding round, amounting to $93 billion, is set to conclude on June 30, 2025. Despite concerns from some developing countries about the bank's expanded climate mission, Banga asserts that positive development and climate outcomes are interconnected. This week, the European Union is ready to potentially reach a preliminary consensus on pioneering regulations for artificial intelligence, unless disagreements surrounding the regulation of advanced AI models derail the process. According to report, representatives from the European Commission, the European Parliament, and 27 member countries will convene to finalize the EU's proposed AI Act, which was initially introduced in 2021. The aim is to achieve a definitive agreement on the legislation by year-end, prompting a rush to reach a compromise before the upcoming meeting on December 6th. And with that, we call it a wrap on the morning news update. Join us for more analysis on Early Exchange. I'm Adesua Iramosele. Many thanks for watching.
My name is Olatunji Shotimirin. I'm a performing artist and, television radio presenter and a university lecturer, Unilag. Keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Black, Africa's finest music comedian, and you're watching Sook News. If you're not watching Sook News, I pity you, but keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Timmy Dakolo and you're watching Sook News. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Wisdom Oluwaseun Okoko, co-founder Orbit Africa Properties. I'm live at Sook News. Guys, keep watching Sook News. For everything that concerns business, economy, politics, news, Sook News is your station.
Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Ache, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruwoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
Government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil.
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
We are conducting mining today, solid minerals as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, is abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, thank you, Adesua, for that news update. It's time for news analysis now, where we review the major headlines trending today. And we're looking at stories across Nigeria and across the continent, Africa and globally. As usual, we have in-house wise ones here, in-house experts. They're here to do justice to that. I'm going to start with the lady in the house. So ladies first. Blessing, good morning.
Thank you very much for being a gentleman. Good morning, Femi.
I've always been.
Okay, I see you're improving at that. You had a B before, now you're getting A.
No, I'm learning from Dr. Idauza.
That's good. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Blessing. Blessing, Femi.
Good morning.
Good to be here this morning again. Yeah, we thank God for renewing our license to see another day.
Yes. Yes,
it's a great opportunity.
God is the #1 person who's giving us renewed hope.
Yes.
So the president took a leaf from that.
Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us in Early Exchange.
When you combine renewed hope with divine hope.
That's hope in abundance.
Hope Pro Max.
Yes, Hope Pro Max, exactly.
All right, Blessing.
It's a wonderful day. Yeah, today is the 7th day in the month of December. 1 week is gone in December, and we're just looking at how the year is about to wrap up. There are different developments, and thanks to Adesua Misele, who is taking us round the globe within a very short while to inform us of current happenings, which we'll be looking at this morning.
That's great. So we're starting with the aviation story, talking about the MOU signed between the Nigerian government and Kuwait regarding the aviation sector. You know, yesterday was International Civil Aviation Day, and the minister took advantage of that, ceremony to sign an MOU with Kuwait government. Now, the essence of the MOU is to look at what the two countries could, how they can add value to each other when it comes to boosting the aviation sector. They call it bilateral air service agreement. It's a kind of agreement whereby both countries can, have exchange of services when it comes to air transport. So what it means is the local airlines here can do businesses in Kuwait. And to sign this MOU, it took a special day like the International Civil Aviation Day. Let me start with Dr. Idauza. This kind of collaboration or this kind of partnership, of what civic significance is it going to be to the aviation sector? You know, the minister has been in the news in recent times. You know that all eyes on him. He's doing everything to ensure that he's going to right the wrong. So let me start with you. This MOU between Nigeria and Kuwait, how significant is it going to be to the aviation sector?
Well, I think for me, anywhere you can get value is worth the while, as far as I'm concerned. The aviation industry is one industry that is quite lucrative. Only unfortunate that we have not been able to leverage that industry so well. I'm not sure whether the Kuwait airline comes to Nigeria regularly. Direct flight from Nigeria to Kuwait, because there's no place on the planet Earth where you will not find Nigeria do business. And so having a straight flight from Nigeria to Kuwait would be quite ideal. And I think it's also important too to see how we also can leverage this opportunity. No thanks to the failed attempt at the Nigerian Air, because that one will make the agreement real worth the while. That if it's a bilateral agreement, it means that you're allowing me to land, and I'm also allowing you to land. And then, of course, we can actually exchange value. And I think that's where Nigeria needs really to work hard and see how some of our own local or domestic airlines take advantage of this agreement. Airplanes can be moving to Kuwait, and also Kuwait airline come to Nigeria. And I think if it is done, value is added. I know, of course, employment is created, more revenue for government, as it were. So these are all things that government really need to do, because the emphasis should really not be for me on the first market. Secondary markets are things that we can actually leverage, because if you say you want to access the American market or you want to access the Singaporean market, all these things can be real, not as easy as it seems. But see, if you're moving into markets that are not too developed, you can quickly leverage, and therefore the first market will become envious of your success and want to do business with you. So I think for me it's a nice move, although Nigerian-Kuwaiti relationship has been cordial over the years. This is just to strengthen that bond between Nigeria and Kuwait, and I hope that our own people will take advantage of this opportunity to do business globally.
It's a boost for the aviation sector, expanding beyond just domestic flights, because that's what the Nigerian airlines basically do. So, but going to having this kind of agreement, it solidifies the aviation industry. And with this, I know that more will be easier to come, and then it will expand the markets for the airlines, which will be very good for them. So imagine if you're now taking people to Kuwait, there's a direct flight from Nigeria to Kuwait, and you don't have to do all those transits. It's better off, and it's more activity for the aviation industry.
No doubt, this kind of partnership will always lead to more trades, more businesses, and what it means is you're extending value as well. But let's look at
there's also another aspect, sorry for me to cut you in, that we must also have to look at. Is one thing to sign agreement. It's also another thing to create the enabling environment to do business. As it is now, the Abuja airport, for example, only one runway servicing both the international flight and the domestic flight. And that's not good enough. That's certainly not good enough. So we must have the airport that will be able to actually service this operation. If you go to UAE, for example, they can handle over 9 flights at the same time, coming and going at the same time, and without any serious trouble on one airport. And I think those are the things that, of course, we also need to invest in infrastructure, so that, of course, because that's where the value comes from, because we're talking about tourism, that people can come in and they move out at any time. So this is why you see sometimes you are having delayed flight. I remember sometime early this year I was coming from Abuja, and we have to cancel a flight because one airline grounded on the runway, and those who were going to travel to catch a flight in Lagos couldn't move. Those who were doing domestic, they couldn't move, because just the runway, just single runway was blocked. And I think government need to really expedite action in opening up this runway, so that you can have multiple airline come to your country, and of course handling will not become a really significant issue. I think I need just to add that to this signing of the agreement. So it's one thing to sign agreement, it's also to make the agreement profitable.
I wish the other international airports that we have can receive traffic, but there's a preference for Abuja and Lagos. But I do hope that maybe Port Harcourt, Asaba, and some other international airports will get they have the structure, but maybe just a bit of improvement, and the passengers too will be willing to use those routes to connect.
But I also think if Lagos and Abuja is done really well, because globally I think that's what you see. If you go to, for example, Paris, Charles de Gaulle has a very fundamental airport with sufficient structure, so people can do transit. Yes, there are some few couples of other airports that may not be as big as Charles de Gaulle. So you go to Heathrow, you go to UK. So all these things are people really domicile. If you go to the UAE, you have the Dubai International Airport. That's the major airport that really fits UAE. Yes, there's an airport in Sharjah. There's airport in Abu Dhabi, but they are not as big as the one in this thing. So if you have one who is functional, so when people come in, they can actually take local flights to other parts of the country, is fine. We don't really need to invest in several international airports, because when people are coming to you, except there are value really that you have, maybe you have Enugu International Airport, and so who's going to fly into Enugu International Airport, except that there's a business you want to do in Enugu. But people want to come to visit Nigeria, they want to visit Abuja, they want to visit Lagos, and we know the reason, because Abuja is the seat of power, Lagos is the seat of the economy. So until we grow those economy really, those international airports, there'll be not too much of traffic. Investment in them actually may be like actually putting money where you don't need it. But I think the major gateway to Nigeria, which is Lagos and Abuja, we must find a way to develop it so that the traffic that is required can actually flow. We don't need to have too many of them, but if you have one that is standard, you can
or
actually
have two in Abuja.
Yeah, of course. Why not? If there is no space to actually expand this older one, we can look for other places where we can actually create bigger airports where we can put all resources, and people coming to Abuja can take advantage of those facilities.
How will you assess the level of the reaction by the minister to the issue of Nigeria, here, talking about the national carrier? What are the lessons for Nigeria? The new minister decided to investigate. One of the things in your arrival was the fact that part of the agreement was that an Ethiopian would be the one to head that, airline, which he said Nigerians who were part of the deal signed to that. He was surprised that they had to sign that kind of deal, that you have a foreigner to have to head a national carrier, when you have qualified Nigerians who could do that. So what are the lessons? Looking at how the ministers have handled this issue of national carrier, there are some who still argue it's still the way to go.
One of the book I enjoyed reading while I was doing my leadership training was Buy Your Future by Mesa Otabi, which used the story of Esau and Jacob to describe the kind of nations you find on the planet Earth and the kind of people. Because if you look at that story, say there are two kind of people and there are two kind of nations that was in the womb of Rebekah. Now, these two nations are distinguished by the way they do things. Now, what Mesa Otabi found out in that book is that most of the third world nations, they are controlled by the Esau paradigm. That it is the Esau mentality that drives them, because they're always negotiating out of empty stomach. And every time you negotiate out of empty stomach, you really don't get good value for it. And I think this is what it is.
So, advantage, of course.
Yes, of course, because you are hungry, and you can hear Esau say to Jacob, if you don't give me this red meal, I will die. And so they say, okay, well, I will give you meal, but just give me your birthright, and that's fine. And it was easy for him to part with the birthright because he was negotiating from empty stomach. And in that book, Mesa Otabi says most African leaders negotiate out of empty stomach, and therefore they sign anything because they are in a hurry to prove to the citizen that they are doing stuff. And I think this is not good for us. We really need people with a kind of Jacob mindset and to see where you can get value. If it is not possible now, we can do it tomorrow. We should not be desperate to just make a name. But you see, at the end of the day, look at the shame that came with it. We quickly branded the airplane, we brought it here, and Ethiopia took it back because they were the stronger partner in that negotiation. So I think this is the real issue that we need to confront, where ministers are in a hurry to prove themselves, and therefore they don't take time to look at documents or even agreement to see how it profits us as a people. So you are negotiating your future away. So this is what it is. And I think those who are employed as ministers or appointed as ministers to drive the process must have the nation at the back of their mind. But again, this is because, of course, people say there's no global vision as a nation.
that we're all pursuing, that every ministry should key into, so that we actually know where we want to make value. Because this is what is important. We cannot compete in all the fronts. We must choose our battles wisely as a nation. And then, of course, focus all our energy, all our resources in that one single direction. And then, as we begin to make value from that area, you cannot begin to diversify. And I don't think it's just necessary that, oh, every minister must do something and it must do it now. And therefore, we get into agreements that does not favor Nigeria. This is not just the very first type. We saw the P&ID agreement, and there are thousands of them like that, that even many of them are facing litigation as we speak. So these are the real issues that faces us, because one person is just wanting to prove a point, and that point itself may be quite unnecessary. And I don't think we needed to get into that area of signing an agreement that will not be to the advantage of your country. Like we were taught while we were in school, international relation is simply the extension of your domestic politics. So it is what is good for your citizen that should drive your interaction with other nations of the world.
Interesting. Now let's get to Edo State, where the state government, in partnership with the federal government, decided to empower 500 entrepreneurs, including women and youth, with what we call agri-capital. There's been this advocacy for young people to go into agriculture, for them to see what they can do out of it. Now the Edo State government has taken this initiative now to see what can be done by providing capital. When it comes to starting any business, the greatest headache has to be the issue of financing and the issue of capital. So the Edo State government has taken this initiative to ensure that these young men and women are being empowered, about 500 of them. Let me start with you, Dahosa. The right step in the right direction?
Well, I don't have the details as we speak, so I will not be able to actually be authoritative in this regard. But my counsel will just be that we're also expecting that this particular initiative is strategic enough. I'm not an advocate of just giving people money without thinking it through. Because we have done this over and over, and it does not yield any substantial results. What I want to see, I want to see a situation, for example, in the early 90s, in the 80s, in the early 2000s, Edo was the hub, for example, for pineapple production. And we're doing it en masse. Plantain, en masse. Now, I want to see a kind of cooperative in this direction, where we are going to select fruits to be produced, and the area where these fruits are going to come from. And these agripreneurs are grouped into clusters or cooperative, so that it becomes substantial. And then we are going to also see how we have to also invest in the processing of these agri products, such a way that the farmer who is actually benefiting is able to even pay back the facility and still live a good life. Because this is where the interest in agriculture had died. I usually use my sample as a young man. I used to tap rubber. And those days, rubber business was good. Because even from primary school, not secondary, primary school, we wake up very early in the morning, go and tap rubber, and then we come back from school, we go and collect the rubber. The lumps we gather on Sunday, the middlemen who buy come to the town and they weigh your lumps and they give you money, and then you're a big boy for that day. And we really were not depending on our parents, but they planted the plantation, but we were actually bringing rubber. So rubber was coming out in mass up to a certain point where, of course, we tapped rubber and we saw that people who were paying us in advance before are now owing us 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month. And then, of course, you ask why, and they tell you that, look, the rubber they took to Saple, that Ibo has not brought money. It only took me to grow up to realize what actually happened. That once they developed synthetic to the rubber, the importation dropped. So they were not buying. What happened to our parents? They cut down the rubbers to plant cassava. And this is what happened when you don't invest in the value chain of an agricultural product. Because people are putting effort into a farm and they cannot see real value for it. Sometimes the market is not ready. You plant plantain, you cut them down, there's no ready buyer who is quickly to convert it into finished products or processed plantain or flour, whatever it is. So if this is happening, the farmer becomes discouraged. Because the whole essence of a man going into the farm is to be able to make a living out of it. So these are issues that we must also have to address. There must also be a program, maybe for cold storage facilities, so that some of these perishables that we are getting from the farm, we don't just harvest them and then they waste out during their season. And then after season, it becomes quite expensive and we are not able to modulate the prices. So these are issues that I feel that those who are taking initiative must put to heart. Not just to take facility and give to party men for the sake of winning elections. And then, of course, at the end of the day, we don't get value for it. That loan is acquired and it is not repaid. Just my take, because I cannot, I don't think I have the details to that program. I will not be able to answer them.
The interesting thing about the program is they are not being given funds. So the way it's going to work is the fund is going to be committed in providing equipment, you know, fertilizer, some of the seedlings that will be needed for the farming. You know, that's why it's being called Agricare Working Capital.
So this time around, my challenge with that,
yeah,
who is the contractor buying the fertilizer? Will the farmer get it at the right price? Who is bringing the equipment? These are issues, and very weighty issue at that. Because if you give a farmer fertilizer and you monetized it, except you are not wanting him to pay back. So you should be able to calculate what is going to be produced in the farm, whether it should be able to repay the facility. So except that it's a grant. But if it's a loan, then of course you have to be careful how we get and source these materials.
In a system like this, what way would have been better to empower farmers?
Yeah, but
or empower those in the agriculture sector?
That is what I'm saying. We need, first and foremost, to be strategic about what we do. You see, today in Israel, there are technology they call precision agriculture, where people can sit down on the table and will be able to estimate the quantum of fruits they need from a tree and determine how to make it work. All these things are already available and alive and are here with us. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. What I'm simply saying is that the state needs to be more strategic in this kind of partnership. To say, okay, this is what we want to do. Based on the land size that we have. Based on the resources that's available to us. And therefore, we are going to empower such people with XY capital to produce this quantum of fruit. It becomes measurable at the end of the day. So it's not just to say, oh, we are giving seedling to people, we are giving fertilizer to people. Now, it's not just about fertilizer. I grew up to see extension worker, for example, come to our village to tell our parents how to use fertilizer and the type of fertilizer that the soil require, because they have to first of all do the soil tests. That is no longer in existence today, because what I see is that all one brand fertilizer is what you carry. Those extension workers those days will do soil tests to know what is missing in your soil that you need to help the fruit to grow. We have left all these things where we started, which the real solid foundation we will have leverage on. So today we are talking about carcinogenic agricultural produce leaving us, and we are not also examining what are the impact of the fertilizer on it. Because if this thing had to be exported, somebody had to do the due diligence to know the kind of fertilizer the soil require to help the product, so that at the end of the day they become edible, and then of course we can get value from it from the outside. All this comprehensive thing the state needs to do, we need to have those structure on the ground before we say, okay, this is the position we are driving and this is what we want to achieve. But I have seen several initiatives, and we are not short at this. Federal government, state governments have invested heavily in agriculture, and yet we are yet to get the real value that should come from it. And I feel that we need to be a little more strategic in our thinking to see where we want to have an advantage, and also look at what processes we need to put in place for this to happen.
All right, let's get to Kenya. You know, we've been in Nigeria. I need you to take you out of Nigeria. So the jackpot will be to Kenya now. All right, let's look at this story. You know, the Kenyan court has stopped the privatization of about 11 public companies, you know, including the oil and gas company, just like our own version of NNPC. You know, the Kenyan government wanted to privatize these 11 companies with the motive to make it better and bring efficiency for investors to take over. But the opposition, led by Odinga, has gone to court to stop this, citing some legal issues and then public interest. And they are also of the opinion that this thing should be subjected to referendum, so that we have the opinion from stakeholders for them to hear their view on the issue of the privatization. Now, let's look at the fact that the opposition has gone to court now and has stopped this process. What does that suggest to us about the need to play healthy politics, and then how the proper way to play opposition? You see here in Nigeria or in any other place where opposition is seen like, okay, an enemy to the government, but here we have a good example where they've gone to court speaking on behalf of the people, citing the interests of the people, that, hey, if you need to privatize this, you need to have a kind of consensus among the citizens for them to decide what should be their lot. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think for me, that's democracy at work, and it's something that we will need to really encourage. One of the things that I've seen in Africa as a political scientist is the fact that our party politics is not as developed as it should be, where politics is run on ideals, not on attack on persons, as we currently do. You see, here, political parties have a focus that they are driving. And that focus is how they feel that the state can be better organized for value for the greater majority of the people. That's why, for example, in the US, you have the Republican, you have the Democrats. Now, there's a marked difference between when the Democrats are in office and the Republicans are in the office. Now, if the Republican come to office, what they tend to do is to give holiday to the company so that they can continue to make profit and generate value for the environment. But once the Democrats come to power, they tend to want to tax more of the company so that they can provide social service to the people. Now, you see this balance, and this is why you see in America it's almost certain that the maximum any of the party can go is 2 terms. Because after 8 years, it becomes very heavy on the companies and they will need some relief. And then, of course, it will determine how voting will happen. So we've seen this trend happen. And that's not all connected with the last election that could not even survive 8 years. Because it happened in the COVID year. And there was a need to ameliorate the suffering of the people. And so the tide, of course, will quickly turn toward the people. So it was not difficult for the the Democrats to win the day. So this is how politics should be done. You go to the UK, you're seeing the Labour Party, you're seeing the Conservative. Everybody knows how they want the society to be organized. Now, what you are seeing here in Kenya play out, and you're seeing a pro-people Odinga party who feels that the security of the state lies on the state control of critical national assets that should not be sold. So you will be able to read where the Ruto party belong and where the Odinga party belong. Because this is what they're thinking. How do we organize the state such a way that we're going to prioritize either business or we're going to prioritize the people? This is the real challenge. But I think what should be primary for us here is to see what is the value. Are there things that Odinga is seeing? The party in power selling this asset to themselves and really not to competent hands. You see, you have to evaluate all this. Now, it's also to look at it. Is it a kind of a vote of no confidence on the public sector's inability to drive business and run it profitably? Now, all these arguments are the things that we have to put on the ground to be able to assess this. But the court has a final say on this matter to say, well, if the provisions of the Constitution are breached in the sale of these assets, of course, the court, the final arbiter of the laws of the land, will be able to say, no, we cannot sell. So, but probably just an ex parte order now from the court. The final decision may not have been taken, but I feel that if the law is followed to the letter, and in terms of the privatization move, you will see that at the end of the day, the court may not be able to stop those actions. But what for me is important is to see how we can begin to run businesses and run them profitably. I've come to that reasoned conclusion that states can run business and run them profitably well. If Saudi Aramco, a state-owned company in Saudi Arabia, is making so much money, then why is it that Kenya National Oil Company can't make money? So it's to see how we can take away all these obstacles and barriers to profitability and allow public control resources to actually make a profit. You know, I made one example here yesterday. Take, for example, the Heathrow Airport, not controlled by the British authority. And then the king of Oman can say, wake up one day, or king of Qatar, and said, this airport, I don't want it to run today because he's the owner of the airport. So what will the British government really do? Is it that you go to court to do litigation or you want to enforce this thing? Because these are issues that have to do with law. And this is why there are some basic national assets that the state must not necessarily let go. Otherwise, they will lose their sovereignty to other foreign nations. So these are the issues that are for consideration in things like this. And I think that Nigerian opposition party should learn from this. Because you remember in the First Republic, we have the UPN, or the Action Group, that was a shadow government to the ACNC. And in the Second Republic, the UPN, ably led by Obafemi Awolowo, was also a shadow government to the MPN. And for every policy that the MPN turned out, Obafemi Awolowo's Unity Party proved it wrong at the states where they had control. to see that there's a better way to do these things, because they had their plan and program on how they feel that the state should be run. But the way the opposition is really structured in Nigeria today, for example, this kind of heady politics you can't see. All you see is attack on persons and attack for attack's sake without necessarily thinking through or preferring alternative to what the governing power is saying.
You left out the protests as part of the attacks, because there will be protests everywhere that will almost degenerate into riot situations. Well, it's good to know that they want the judiciary to be the final arbiter in a matter like this. And I think that for the government of the day to want to privatize, of course, that's a signal that all is not going well with the National Oil Company. Now, to what extent that things have gone wrong, I cannot ascertain, but of course it's a signal that something has gone wrong. Because if you have an organization that is performing well as it should be, then the issue of privatization would not even arise. But trust is also an issue. To whom are you giving this company? It's a national asset and is very significant. It affects the lives of everybody. So if it's privatized, and the wrong person's handle it, it means that you're moving from the pan to the fire. I get the fear of the opposition, but the beauty of it is the part of let's allow the people decide what should happen to their national assets, what should happen with what would affect their daily living. So that's the part that I like about it, but I already think that there's a problem with the National Oil Organization or Corporation. Otherwise, the issue of privatization would not even arise.
Yeah, but you see, there's a problem always with majoritarian ethic of democratic governance. Because most of the time, majority are always not right. So referendum really do not solve this issue.
It's going to be like a matter of sentiment.
Yeah, but yes, it's just carrying people along, because, of course, majority can always be wrong most of the time. And so the voice of the minority that actually be representing what is right will just be, because a whole lot of sentiment and emotions are factored into this decision-making process. But I just feel that elites in all climes must always put the interest of the greater happiness of the greatest majority of the people into their heart. Privatization really do not mean that the entire asset be sold wholesale. Government can simply allow 30% of its holding to go into the hands of the private sector, while it holds majority of the stake in the corporations. In that case, you will still have your representative at the board, so that when decisions are taken, it is done for national interest. Because one thing that people don't quickly realize is that you may say, oh, let's sell everything wholesale. And then you sell it today, you use the money today. Tomorrow you don't have anything to sell. And you are not in control.
You also don't have a say.
So you don't have a say and you can't control it. So this is where, of course, state must balance the drive for revenue and the common interest of the majority of the people, so that whatever decision on action that is taken is done for the interest and for the common good of the people.
Yeah, that's great. We need to move on now. And on that note, we need to thank you for your time. As usual, giving your intervention when it comes to news analysis. Thank you very much. Blessing to you. Kudos.
Thank you
for doing your beat. All right, we'll go on a short break. When we return, we'll have a major conversation for today. Stay with us.
My name is Olatunji Shoti Miri. I'm a performing artist and, television radio presenter and a university lecturer, Unilag. Keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Black, Africa's finest music comedian, and you're watching Sook News. If you're not watching Sook News, I pity you, but keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Timidakolo, and you're watching Sook News. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Wisdom Oluwaseun Okoko, co-founder Orbit Africa Properties. I'm live at Sook News. Guys, keep watching Sook News. For everything that concerns business, economy, politics, news, Sook News is your station.
My name is Olatunji Shoti Miri. I'm a performing artist and, television radio presenter and a university lecturer, Unilag. Keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Black, Africa's finest music comedian, and you're watching Sook News. If you're not watching Sook News, I pity you, but keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Timmy Dakolo and you're watching Sook News. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Wisdom Oluwaseun Okoko, co-founder Orbit Africa Properties. I'm live at Sook News. Guys, keep watching Sook News. For everything that concerns business, economy, politics, news, Sook News is your station.
Lateef Jakande. Born Lateef Kayode Jakande in the Ekpetedo area of Lagos Island, Lagos State on July 1929. He studied at the Lagos Public School at Enuowa, Lagos Island, then at Bonham Memorial Methodist School, Port Harcourt, King's College, enrolled at Ilesha Grammar School, where he edited a literary paper called The Quarterly Mirror. Jakande began a career in journalism in 1949 with a daily service and joined the Nigerian Tribune in 1953. The owner, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, appointed Jakande editor-in-chief of the Tribune in 1956. Jakande established John West Publications in 1975 after leaving Tribune and began to publish the Lagos News. He served as the first president of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, NPAN. Jakande ran for election as executive governor of Lagos State in 1979 on the Unity Party of Nigeria platform. His administration was effective and open and implemented the cardinal policies of his party. He introduced housing and educational programs targeting the poor, building new neighborhood primary and secondary schools, and providing free primary and secondary education. He gave poor people's children education, and many of them are now very prominent in the society today. Jakande established the Lagos State University and constructed over 30,000 housing units. After the military takeover in 1983, Jakande was charged, prosecuted, and convicted of treason and later pardoned. He served as Minister of Works under the Sani Abacha military regime. He died in Lagos on February 11, 2021. Lateef Jakande was the first civilian governor of Lagos State. Lateef Kayode Jakande. Sook Enlightenment. Morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, it's abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, you're still on to Early Exchange. Interestingly, today is UN International Civil Aviation Day, which was promulgated in 1944, called what you call the Chicago Convention. We'll be looking at that for the next few minutes, and we hope you can also share your view in that regard by going on our social media platform, using the hashtag Early Exchange. It's your program, it's our program, so you have to participate. That's what we'll be looking at. It's something that is quite important because when it comes to the aviation sector, it's a sensitive sector. The issue of safety, the issue of rules guiding the operation of that sector is very important. And that was why the Chicago Convention had to address this. Shortly, we're going to be joined by our guest to look at the UN International Civil Aviation Day. But Blessing is here. You know, looking at the aviation sector, the issue of safety, it's something crucial. In fact,
paramount.
Very paramount. Thank God in recent times we've not had issue of casualties when it comes to, you know, the aviation sector in Nigeria, unlike in some years ago. You remember what happened to Sosoliso and some other airlines, which I would love to talk about, is a sad development. But the good thing here, for years, we've not had issue of casualties. This is just because in recent times, the Aviation Authority has prioritized the issue of safety. It's very crucial because it's also important for you as a player in that sector to understand that your investments are in right position. And one of the things they've done is to ensure that they put in place rules and regulations guiding the operations of these airlines, so that whatever is to be done at a particular time are being done. You know, when it comes to servicing of the equipment, servicing of aircraft, it has to be top-notch. The interesting thing is these things are done according to international standard. And so it's not limited to Nigeria. It's a global thing. So there are conventions, there are rules guiding the operations of a sensitive sector like the aviation sector. The good thing is Nigeria has recorded good statistics when it comes to safety, and we're hoping they will improve on that. And that's why the Chicago Convention pointed attention to the need to sustain this, which was part of the revolution that was, you know, championed in 1944. And a day like this is dedicated to create more awareness on the need to sustain safety when it comes to the aviation sector.
Yes, the aviation sector is very key because it connects businesses and connects people. Imagine how difficult it would have been for people to move from one part of the world to the other without flights. That would have taken a longer period of time, and so it wouldn't be very easy for people to connect. So it facilitates global trade, it facilitates tourism, and a whole lot. Now, looking at how the aviation industry globally has grown, you see lots of growth. Let's even begin from home. Nigeria. There was a time when it was very difficult for you to get flights connecting from one city to the other, and it was even a problem of safety. There was the big problem of safety. At that particular point in time, there were different series of crashes that happened, but it took a overhaul to actually bring safety to the sector, that these days people even prefer to fly rather than go from one destination to the other using road transportation or other kinds of transportation. But the only challenge with that is that it's expensive. If not for the expensive nature of it, it would have been what everybody would like to use. But like I said, there's been lots of growth experience in the sector. We've seen more airlines come into the sector. It's something now that is like a pride, and there's even room for others to come in. But notwithstanding, there are other challenges to it. We understand that it's a capital-intensive sector, and with the issue of the Jet A1 fare being expensive, that also resulted in the hike in the cost of airfares. But apart from that, connecting international flights is also a challenge because we do not have a lot of domestic airlines flying to those routes. And that's what a day like this is about: ensuring cooperation from nations to facilitate air travels and also have that synergy, because if it takes every hand to be on deck to ensure safety on flights. If you recall, there's a sad incident that you do not want to talk about, but it did happen where people were held hostage on a flight. So it takes the cooperation of intelligence of one security architecture of one country and the other to ensure that the airspace is secure, from the airport to the flight and even all through to the journey. So a day like this brings to the fore the impacts that the aviation sector has actually had on other industries, because it connects people, like I said, it connects businesses and it facilitates movement easily. In a matter of hours, you're connecting from one country to the other. If that wasn't there, it would have been difficult.
No doubt, the aviation sector has contributed significantly to the growth of, to the economic growth of our country. It's one sector where you can't cut corners.
That's all.
As much as it's capital intensive, you also must ensure that you don't cut corners because it has to do with lives. And I'm happy that in recent times, our records when it comes to safety has improved as a nation. But let's see what our guests will have to say in this regard. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, we'll connect with our guests who will also give us an expert opinion on the issue of civil aviation in Nigeria. Stay with us.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you are on to Souk News. If you are watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it because this is Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souk News. Here's the Souk News who had the courage to transcend a locked-off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure.
My name is Olatunji Shotimirin. I'm a performing artist and, television radio presenter and a university lecturer, Unilag. Keep watching Souk News.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Black, Africa's finest music comedian, and you're watching Souk News. If you're not watching Souk News, I pity you. But keep watching Souk News.
Hello everyone, my name is Timidakolo and you're watching Souk News. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Wisdom Oluwaseun Okoko, co-founder Orbit Africa Properties. I'm live at Souk News. Guys, keep watching Souk News. For everything that concerns business, economy, politics, news, Souk News is your station.
The National Theatre, Igomu, built during the military regime of Olusegun Obasanjo and finished in the time for the Second World Festival of Black Arts and Culture, FESTAC, in 1977. The theater holds amazing treasures and memories. The artworks fill everyone with pride. The National Arts Theatre is visible from the motorway which connects Lagos Island and the mainland. The National Theatre is packed with the artworks of a legendary contemporary Nigerian artist, stained glass walls by Yusuf Grillo, sculptures and murals by Lamidi Fakeye, Erabo Emopai, and many others. It was put to full use for a month as one of the 4 venues of the Second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, tagged FESTAC 77. The complex hosted 16,000 participants from 56 African countries and the diaspora in an unprecedented showcase of African music, fine art, literature, drama, dance, and religion. The National Art Theatre was built and designed by Techno Experts Troll, a Bulgarian company mirroring the Palace of Culture and Sports in Varna, Bulgaria. Completed in 1976, the building is one of the largest and most beautiful of its kind on the African continent. It consists of a central hall with 5,000 seats, a collapsible stage that can be quickly rebuilt, a conference hall with 1,600 seats, 2 large exhibition halls, and 2 cinemas with 800 seats each. The theater complex has a dressing room for artists, a garage, offices, coffee bars, and a buffet. It has indoor TV and radio systems, as well as booths with facilities for simultaneous translation of languages and hectares of large green lawn around. The majestic structure sits in Igomu like a quiet mountain, mesmerizing visitors and passers-by. The National Theatre, Souk Enlightenment. Morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today, solid minerals as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, is abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, we're still looking at International Civil Aviation Day. Today is a special day dedicated by the UN to draw awareness to the importance and the role of the aviation sector to the economy globally. And we're going to look at the state of aviation in Nigeria and by extension Africa. To shed more light on this, we have an in-house analyst, Dr. Idauza Samanzi. He's here with us again. Glad to know you're always there with us.
My pleasure always.
All right, great. So let's look at a day like this, dedicated by the United Nations to draw awareness to the importance of a sensitive sector like the aviation sector. Let's come back to Nigeria. What's your take on the performance of that sector in the last few years, especially when it comes to the issue of safety and it comes to the professional conduct in that sector?
I think it's getting better by the day, especially when you have to look from where we are coming from in terms of regulatory compliance, in terms of even certain standards from the regulatory authority. But I think there's still a whole lot that needs to happen in that industry. Because when you look at aviation globally, and especially with the challenge, of course, the world currently face, the need to invest in modern aircraft cannot be overemphasized. And that's also because of the impact these also contribute to the emission of carbon into the environment. And so, in that regard, I think a lot needs to be done. You also see that there is also this disconnect of between the customers and, of course, operators. And some of them owing to operational challenges from the airline themselves. And in a climb here, you can only know when your flight is when the aircraft eventually taxi off the tarmac. But this also bears a whole lot of burden to the flying public. I can imagine that you have a business to catch up, and then you have to quickly take off, and then of course you are delayed, and the losses, and of course really, as it is here, people really do not care. And these are issues that really need to be managed, especially that role between customers and operators. Information sometimes don't fly. I remember the last time I was flying from Abuja to Lagos, and a particular flight said, oh, hold on. We head on till about 11 before they told us that the flight cannot hold. And then they just ask you to go. And it's just like that. No consequence. And I think these are issues also that the authorities in Nigeria need really to look into and see how we can also be proactive in terms of information sharing. And this also would need a whole lot to be done by the regulatory authorities and those indirectly also affecting the operations of the airline, like the LMAID, for example, who can predict the weather and say, okay, this is what the weather is likely going to look like. And so before you are scheduling your flight, for example, you should have this information handy and the projections. So these are some of the things, but at least from the days of those crashes, of course, that come, I think the regulations are becoming more stringent. Airlines operators are also living up to their billing as at today, because we have not had any serious or major incidents from commercial flight operation domestically.
Talking about flight cancellations and delays, is it an issue of the demand being more than the supply? If that's the case, what can be done?
Yeah, it's when, of course, people tell you why your flight is delayed that you really need to know, because they really don't care to tell you, and they tell you oh, this flight are supposed to operating from this destination to another destination has been moved to the next 1 hour due to operational challenge. What that means, the customer don't know. So these are issues, of course, that those who are regulatory that sector really need to know, because customers need to know. And if you're going to have such a challenge, people should know beforehand, so that you don't have to, for example, well, most airports are located outside of the city, and you take a whole energy driving all the way to the airport, only to get to the airport at the point of boarding and somebody is telling you your flight cannot move. So these are some of the things that needs to be done with the aid of technology that can be deployed. I don't think it's because of demand and supply, because the real issue is that you are trying to board and they said, okay, you can't move, so it's delayed. Whether it's the fact that what is causing delay, you already know. So it's just put in a blanket word, operation challenge. So what that means is only know to both the airline and the regulator. So these are the issues that, of course, need to be factored into, because, of course, increasingly, consumers are also demanding more efficiency in operation. They want to be able to say that, oh, I'm traveling today and I know when my flight is taking off and I know when it is landing. And you see, most of this cancellation does not affect international flight. It's more prevalent with local flights. And then there must be something that is strategically wrong in that environment. It's either we are not deploying enough technology or not taking advantage of the emerging technology in the industry. So these are some of the issues. And then, of course, also maintenance of the facility itself, the aircraft and the rest of it, to ensure that they are fit to run. So some of all these things are issues that one needs to address. The operational cost, like you mentioned earlier on, is also a very big factor. Cost of maintaining the aircraft. And then, of course, we're not really getting value for what we are doing. It amuses me sometimes when I look at the ticket, the analysis and the breakdown of the cost, that what goes to the airline is not, most of the time, it's not even up to 50% of the ticket fee that's charged. So all these things need to be well balanced, that they are not taking so much from the ticket and the airline operators are left almost with nothing to maintain the flight. You need to take a look at the breakdown of how the fares are and see what goes to the airline operators and then what goes to regulators and then other people who are also playing within that field. So these are issues that needs to be considered so that the industry can be made really profitable and competitive for those who play in it.
Now, the theme for today is advancing innovation for global aviation development. It is true that according to the report of the safety conductor recently, Nigeria had to score like 70%. When it comes to safety, well, Nigeria is doing well. But what are some of the innovations that should be brought to that sector, especially that you have a minister who just came into office a few months ago and is key on turning that sector into make it better than the way he has met it. What are some of the innovations that should be done when it comes to the aviation sector in Nigeria, looking at the state of our airports as well?
Well, I think what we require is value engineering in most of the case. If you see other planes that were made, the wings were all straight out. And now if you see new Boeing aircraft, you see they are all bending. That's the kind of value engineering. And what that does is to help reduce the vortex of the wind in terms of the drag. And because of the way the wings are made now, it reduces the drag. And then, of course, the plane fly faster and consume less fuel. And then, of course, also reduce the impact of emission on the environment. This is value engineering. That's quite innovative. So we really didn't need to do anything. So these are the issues. But, of course, you can't find those kind of aircraft right now here because they're quite expensive. And that's why I'm talking about the kind of profitability that you can actually also bring into some of all these issues that we looking at. So how do we re-engineer value so that people can begin to get value and the entire society benefit completely? So there's a whole lot of innovation that is on, even in terms of using smart gates to reduce the delay between the landing of the aircraft and the time that the passenger eventually leave off the airport. Sometimes you have to stay on a queue. And most countries have been able to overcome that one single immigration officer is able to assess what you bring in and then certify you, and then off you go. But sweating, dragging bags here and here, all these things are not necessary. Technology can actually take care of some of these issues that we still drag with. And I think these are where, of course, the industry need to really make a lot of some investments to see how we can leverage technology and make travel simple.
Yes, the aviation industry in developing countries has emerging market because there's demand for flights and people are always traveling, wanting to connect. Now, you talked about investment, but while you were talking, there's something you talked about regarding what goes to the flight operators, looking at the breakdown from the tickets. So what should the regulators at this point do to ensure that while there are charges, but the airline operators have enough to stay afloat, and the investment that is needed to upgrade the operations, they have it?
Yeah, looking at the emerging market is also to say that not many people are so empowered, for example, locally, to do domestic flight, and so it's not really as profitable as it should be. Because if you have to look at the fare that is charged, airplanes are struggling. Really, the operators are struggling to survive. If you want to price it adequately, then of course not many people will be able to use the facilities. Even better off now, because a whole lot of people are afraid to travel by road, so that push a lot of traffic to air travel. But the need to also be moderate in terms of pricing is quite important. But my argument here is to see how the regulators actually reduces some of the charges so that mutually benefiting. While the state is making and benefiting, then you also see that those who are investing in the travel facility itself are also able to recoup and then, of course, reinvest in the process to acquire brand new aircraft that, of course, will help also address the issue of reducing our carbon footprint. All of these are important, and this will require stakeholders to sit down together and evaluate the entire process and see what can we take away from the process so that we can have more value, so that even the price can be fair and align with what customers can afford, and then you have a lot of more traffic of people flying and using the domestic airports.
Let's look at the issue of aviation fuel, which is one of the reasons you have high cost of air travel in a place like Nigeria. We've had a situation in the past where some airlines were cutting corners because of the cost of, fueling and all that. Over the years, it hasn't changed. The price is still skyrocketing. What can be done to help the plight of these airlines for them to stay in business, looking at the high cost of Jet A1 as we speak?
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about. You see, it's always very important when you have an engagement with your stakeholders and look at what are the basic issues. Now, one of the issues that we talked about that was responsible for that hike is because, of course, they are imported, and the volatility of the exchange rate also affects the the cost of the Jet A1 fuel. Now, but government can look at it to see, for example, do they need to cut down on charges so that you are able to maintain a stable price across board. Take, for example, in product pricing, does this thing you do when you see that prices are getting high, it's either you charge more or you reduce quantity or you reduce quality to be able to stay competitive. Now, if adding more money will make the industry less profitable, then we must be looking creatively at areas where we can actually cut costs for the airline operators so that they are able to maintain a reasonable fare across board.
All right, thank you very much, Delsa Samanze, for being with us as we look at International Day for Civil Aviation today.
Thank you.
We're going to quick break, and then we'll be looking at the health sector. And this time around, we're looking at infant mortality. Stay tuned.
My name is Olatunji Shoti. I'm a performing artist and, television radio presenter and a university lecturer, Unilag. Keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Black, Africa's finest music comedian, and you're watching Sook News. If you're not watching Sook News, I pity you, but keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Timmy Dakolo, and you're watching Sook News. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Wisdom Oluwaseun Okoko, co-founder Orbit Africa Properties. I'm live at Sook News. Guys, keep watching Sook News. For everything that concerns business, economy, politics, news, Sook News is your station.
Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruwoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
Government says that subsidy is not in oil, and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil.
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, it's abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Many thanks for staying tuned to Early Exchange. Now let's turn to the health sector as we look at infant mortality. Yes, it's a challenge globally as several children are unable for different reasons to make it to their 5th birthday. For some, they're unable to even make it to a year. And it gets worse, some are unable to make it to 1 month. So these are the issues we'll be looking at. What happens? Why is it impossible for some babies born to even make it to 1 month? To talk with us, to look at this with us, we'll be having Mary Agolo, who is a registered nurse, public health advocate, and also a media personality. She'll be joining us virtually as a common guest. Good morning, Mary. Please unmute your mic so I can hear you. All right, Mary. Welcome.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Okay. All right. Infant mortality. When we say infant mortality, how severe is this issue globally?
Thank you very much for that question. My name is Mary Zoyalo. I'm a registered nurse. So infant mortality is a global public health issue. especially in Nigeria, it's a very serious issue that we all need to really look into, both people who are in the healthcare sector and those who are not in the healthcare sector. When we say something is a public health issue, it's something that concerns every one of us, just the same way COVID-19 concerns us. The number of children that die between age 0 to their 50th birthday, the number of children that die between age 0 to their 1 year birthday, and the number of neonates that die between the day they were born and 28 days is really, really alarming. And it's something we all need to put effort together to solve as a nation, as individuals, and there are so many things we can actually do. There are so many positive change we can make in the healthcare industry that can help to reduce infant mortality in our society.
All right, Mary, glad to have you joining us on Early Exchange. It's been a while. Glad to see you again. Talk to us. Let's go to the root cause of the problem.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's go to the roots of the problem. You have infant mortality rates in Africa to be very high, and a place like Nigeria. Talk to us. What are the factors contributing to these high rates of infant mortality in Africa? And let's look at Nigeria as well.
Okay. Some of the major causes, some of the major factors that contribute to the high rate of infant mortality in Nigeria and Africa. One major thing is the current economic situation, especially in Nigeria. The current economic situation has made it so difficult for pregnant women in a country like ours. They can't, some of them can't afford proper healthcare service. The healthcare accessibility is so low, they can't afford it. And because the healthcare system is also struggling right now, of course, a lot of sectors in Nigeria is currently struggling, which the healthcare sector is not an exception to. So women who live in the rural areas, even some women who live in the urban areas in the country, still have the problem of being able to access healthcare services easily. Because some of them can't afford it. In fact, most of them can't afford it. And for those who can even afford it, the question is, do we have enough hands to cater for the number of emergencies that we have? And that's talking about the personnel on ground. Remember that currently we have Japa syndrome going on in Nigeria, especially in the health sector for healthcare personnel, where most of the nurses we have all left the country. Doctors, a lot of doctors have also left the countries, and more are still leaving, and more are still going to leave. So if we now have very low number of healthcare personnel that are taking care of multitude of people, pregnant women especially, and the ratio of healthcare personnel to patients is really not equal, it's really not corresponding. So because of that, you would definitely have more children die, babies die between the day they are born to 28 days, which is the neonatal mortality, and then we have the infant mortality of between the day they are born to 1 year, and we have the child mortality between the day they are born to 5 years. Now, another factor is infection. The environment, the kind of lifestyle, and all that. Infection, bacterial infections, even STIs in pregnancy for women. Some pregnant women who have contracted sexually transmitted infection in pregnancy. Some women who were not able to prevent malaria in pregnancy. If you have malaria in pregnancy, it can affect the baby, the fetus, and which in turn can actually make us lose the baby at birth. So bacterial infections and some children infection, like infections that affect children at birth, like meningitis, that's the bacterial infection of the brain, the respiratory tract infections like pneumonia, bronchitis, and so many of them like that. And some are preventable, but some are something mothers cannot really help. So all these and many more are the factors that contribute to infant mortality. Now, before I stop, I would also like to talk about the lifestyle. It is so unfortunate that in Nigeria today we have more women consuming drugs and alcohol than we used to have. I can't really lay my hands on the statistics right now, and I don't want to say something that is now out of the book. So I wouldn't want to mention any numbers, statistics, but I have read it and I have seen reports saying that we have more women, the female gender, now engage in drug and substance abuse and alcohol abuse more in Nigeria than it used to be in the past. So before we had more men, but now we have women. Now it is now worse off to say that even pregnant women in our society today still abuse drugs, substance abuse, take alcohol. So all this unhealthy lifestyle in pregnancy would definitely affect the baby. A pregnant woman who smokes, a pregnant woman who takes alcohol, a pregnant woman who takes marijuana and all sorts of things would definitely have the effect on the baby when the baby is born. And talking about other lifestyle, unhealthy lifestyle of pregnant women, it can also still boil down on the sanitation of the environment they live in because of the economic situation. Some of them live in the slum, some of them live in places that are not healthy for them. The sanitation would definitely bring in the unhygienic practices that would now in turn lead to infection that would affect the baby when the baby is born. And looking at it also from the angle of diet, a lot of these women cannot afford good meal, they cannot afford adequate diet, they cannot afford balanced diet in pregnancy. If malnutrition sets in for a pregnant woman who is not eating enough of protein, that help her as a pregnant woman and the baby in utero. This would also affect the baby when the baby is born and even meat. In those days, we used to hear that, oh, pregnant women should not eat snail. I've actually heard that before. People they will say, oh, pregnant woman should not eat snail because when the pregnant woman eats snails, the baby can start drooling saliva when the baby is born and all that. All these beliefs that are not really, they are not confirmed, they are not researched, they are not true, but people just believe them. These are some cultural beliefs that people just follow and they tend to do it. And in the real sense, snail, for instance, is a good source of potassium and calcium, which is actually good for the baby when a pregnant woman eats it. Plantain, unripe plantain is a good source of potassium, which is good for the pregnant woman which is good for the baby when a pregnant woman eats it. So many other foods, okra, they will say pregnant woman should not eat okra, and it's a good source of vitamin. So all these beliefs and myths would prevent them from doing some certain things that would help them to actually take good care of themselves in pregnancy and the baby. And to crown it all, lack of education and empowerment, lack of information. Some of these pregnant women don't have the right people talking to them. They don't have the right information. They don't have the right education. Some of them are not very educated, but it is one thing to be educated because you've gone to school, you've gone through the 4 walls of an institution, but it is another thing for you not to be educated, but you still have the right persons who are giving you the right information at the time you need this information. So you can see that it is a whole lot of factors coming together. So it is either all the factors affecting one person, or most of the factors affecting one person, or one of the factors affecting one person. And I tell you, if a woman goes through or experiences some of these factors, it takes the grace of God for the child to survive at birth. If the child even survives at birth, it will take the grace of God for the child to live up to 1 year or 5 years of life, and which is infant mortality.
Okay, from what you said, yes, there are different factors that could result in infant mortality. And for some of them, they may be a resultant effect of the economic situation. But some, because of the lack of education, expose themselves to some of these things. So what are the pre-birth and post-birth practices that will prevent some of these situations from happening that would lead to the mortality of an infant?
Thank you very much. Pre-birth.
What are the things that she should do?
From the angle of pre-birth now. Some women don't have the means and the capacity to be able to access prenatal care, that's antenatal care during the pregnancy. It is advised that from the moment you discover that you're pregnant, you go to a nearby hospital, healthcare facility, and you register so that you can start going there for treatment, for checkups, which we call antenatal care. And during the antenatal care, definitely when you go there, you meet nurses, you meet community health extension workers, maybe if it's a primary healthcare center close to you, and then you meet healthcare professionals who will be there to give health talks. I remember that when I was still in the clinical area myself, I used to do a lot of health talk. Even till now, I still do, because I am more in the community now doing public health awareness. And we conduct periodic health talk for women, pregnant women, when they come for antenatal clinic. In fact, the health talk session is one major aspect of the antenatal clinic that is never skipped. So the health talk is there that will help them. So when they listen to this health talk comes in different topics, talking about diet, the things they should eat in pregnancy, talking about the kind of lifestyle they should live, the hygiene, we even talk about breastfeeding, when they give birth, how should they breastfeed. In fact, it is even at antenatal clinic that we teach them, especially new mothers, that's mothers who are getting pregnant for the first time. We teach them how to hold the baby, how to position the baby to breastfeed, because some of them don't know, all these things and many more are the things they learn at antenatal clinic. But if they don't register for antenatal clinic and come to clinic, how will they be able to learn all this? The nurse will not come to your house to come and teach you. Especially now that we even have shortage of health workers, have easy access to antenatal care by registering at a nearby hospital, healthcare center for clinic. They will get all the information they need. That's one. Now, two, at antenatal clinics, we do periodic checks. They will do scan, ultrasound to know the position of the baby, to know if the baby is well developed, to know if the baby is okay, what's the heart rate of the baby, and all that. Scan will help us to know. It is not just about the sex of the baby, because a lot of people believe that ultrasound scan in pregnancy is to know the sex of the baby, but in the real sense, knowing the sex of the baby is just one of the many things that ultrasound scan actually shows us. As regards the baby in utero. So we know everything that pertains to the baby, if the baby is well positioned, so that we will know the next thing to do. Now, also immunization vaccines that are supposed to be taken in pregnancy. For instance, the TT, the tetanus toxoid vaccine, and it is very, very important and compulsory in pregnancy. But a lot of women who don't have access to prenatal care would definitely not take these vaccines, which will pose a serious threat on the life of the baby where the baby is born. Because if the baby should have tetanus, even the mother can also have tetanus. The vaccine that has been taken in pregnancy would help to protect both the baby and the mother. And it is also during the prenatal care that we teach the mother the different immunization and the vaccines that the child is supposed to take at birth and at different intervals of the stage of life of the child. The one that the child will take at birth, like the BCG that is supposed to be taken at birth, like the polio vaccine that is supposed to be taken at different intervals, and so many of them like that. All these vaccines have stages, and they all have their advantages in helping to prevent illnesses, infections in the baby between 0 to 1 year age. So, and also, one of the things that also cause infant mortality is congenital anomaly. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but if I didn't, let me quickly talk about it. Congenital anomaly is a defect, so what we call birth defect in a child. When a child is born, the child has maybe, let me give an example of cleft palate or cleft lips, and all that. If proper care is taken during pregnancy, it can actually prevent this also. And of course, it can even be diagnosed or seen in pregnancy already. And once we know the next things to do to help the baby survive, because a child who has cleft lips or cleft palate will definitely have a nutritional imbalance because the child cannot be able to feed well. So there are some things that will have to be done to help the child to feed well. So all these are prenatal care that needs to be taken in pregnancy to prevent infant mortality when the child is even born. During childbirth, labor, what happens? Because of lack of education, there are some pregnancy complications that occur maybe at the verge of labor that might require a woman to have a cesarean section, for instance. I have worked in a facility where the husband of the pregnant woman, that's the father of the child, refused vehemently cesarean section carried out on his wife, and because of that we lost the baby and we almost lost the mother, because we had a case of fetal distress and maternal distress. The child was already tired and the mother was tired too. That's the and we lost the baby. Why? Because of lack of information, of knowing that cesarean section is actually not bad. But because of that belief that people carry that cesarean section is bad, they can't do surgery, surgery is bad, if you do surgery you will die, and all that. So it made the man just say, I don't want my wife to, she's going to give her like the Hebrew woman, and all that. Yes, you can give her like the Hebrew woman, but if you don't have a normal delivery for some reason, for some health reasons, you can actually do a cesarean section to help you and the baby survive, which would actually go a long way to reduce the number of infant mortality or maternal mortality we will definitely have in that year. If your baby should survive, then your baby would be, So education is important, prenatal care is important, and even the postnatal care. Postnatal care is also important. Now, before I go to postnatal care, still talking about the labor, that's during childbirth. When I have seen women who actually register at the hospital for prenatal care, they attend antenatal clinic, they do scan, they have everything going on well for them during pregnancy, and lo and behold, on the day of labor, they don't go back to the hospital. They rather stay in the house and call a qualified or unqualified person around their neighborhood to come and take the delivery in the house. Or some of them will say they are going to church to have their child because they want the Holy Spirit covering. I am not against that. This is not a religious argument or a religious talk, but I am saying that whatever makes a woman be able to afford antenatal care, antenatal clinic, why can't you go back to the hospital to have your child? So they make that mistake. They have antenatal care. Everything was going on well for them, but on the day of labor, they go somewhere else to have their child, and then they end up losing the child at birth. Or even though they don't lose the child at birth, something just happens that affects the child at birth, which will now make the child die before 1 year or even before 28 days, which is neonatal mortality. Now, coming back to the postnatal, if after you've had good care during your pregnancy and you've had good care during labor and you've had your child very well, everything is going on well already, between the 28 days of the childbirth to 1 year, there are so many things you can do to ensure that your baby survives, especially if there are some factors that are already against you. Maybe you had your child preterm. Preterm child is the fact that a pregnant woman had a baby before 40 weeks, the normal 40 weeks of gestation. Maybe the pregnant woman had a baby at about 20-something weeks, or maybe 30 weeks or thereabouts, So the child has not really taken time to develop very well in pregnancy before the baby was born. A lot of factors could actually cause it. Malaria in pregnancy can make a woman fall into labor at the time she's not supposed to fall into labor, early labor, and the child will have to come out. And hypertension in pregnancy, that's a preeclampsia, can also make us have to bring the baby out so that we can save the woman, because the more the pregnancy is developing, the more the blood pressure will be going up. So we want to save the child, we want to save the baby so that the woman will not throw a fit. We have to make the baby come out preterm. So a lot of factors can cause a child to be born preterm. So that is already a problem. If a child is born preterm, the child needs a very holistic care so that the child can develop, because the child will definitely have a low birth weight. The child will be so small, and the child will need some warmth to help the child grow so that the child can actually be able to go home safe, because we will not discharge a preterm child if we are not sure that the home environment to put the child maybe in an incubator or something. But if the woman did not access good care, good health care, how will all these things be done for such a child who was born preterm with low birth weight? Now, if your child is born with low birth weight, you take the child home. What are the things you should do postnatally to help the child survive it? Good nutrition is very, very important. Good nutrition, which starts from exclusive breastfeeding. But because of the economic situation right now, people, pregnant women don't only eat on healthy during pregnancy. Even after childbirth, they still don't eat healthy. So when they don't eat healthy, you are trying to do exclusive breastfeeding, and the child needs to get all the proper nutrients from that breast milk. You cannot give what you don't have. You don't have the proper nutrients in your body system. How will your breast milk have the proper nutrients to give a child? So you, as the mother, a new mother who just had a baby, you are malnourished, and your child will definitely be malnourished for so many reasons, So a woman who has just delivered postnatally has to eat well. And when I say eat well, take a lot of vitamins and protein. And I have noticed in my years of experience in the public health field, giving health talks and everything, I have noticed that people lack the knowledge. Not just the pregnant woman or the new moms, everybody, both men and women, adults and young. People lack the knowledge of food combination, because the kind of food we eat in Nigeria, we have more carbohydrate food than the rest. or and it also looks like the carbohydrate food are more affordable and easily accessible for mothers, for people, so people tend to eat more carbohydrate and they lack the knowledge of food combination, the best way to combine carbohydrates and protein with vitamins to make a balanced meal. If a child is being fed, if a child between the age 0 to 5 years is being fed of only a one-sided nutrient, which is more of carbohydrate food, which lacks protein, vitamins, and other minerals, definitely before you know what is happening, we already have a case of infant mortality in our hands. I think I should stop here.
You're doing well and the conversation is getting interesting, but we need to go on a short break now. When we return, our conversation with Mary on infant mortality will kick off again. Stay with us.
My name is Olatunji Shoti Miri. I'm a performing artist and, television radio presenter and a university lecturer, Unilag. Keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Black, Africa's finest music comedian, and you're watching Sook News. If you're not watching Sook News, I pity you, but keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Timmy Dakolo, and you're watching Sook News. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Wisdom Oluwaseun Okoko, co-founder Orbit Africa Properties. I'm live at Sook News. Guys, keep watching Sook News. For everything that concerns business, economy, politics, news, Sook News is your station.
Morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, it's abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, glad to know you are still there with us. Our conversation is still on infant mortality, and our guest is still here with us. Statistics has it in Nigeria that out of every 1,000 children, you have 55 deaths being recorded, which likely has been responsible for infant mortality in Nigeria, which is prevalently high in the African continent. Our guest is still here. She's been providing some insight related to infant mortality in Nigeria. Mary, glad to know you are still there with us. Now, let's look at the issue of access to basic health care in Nigeria, which has a lot of issues and challenges. How has this contributed to the high rate of infant mortality in Nigeria? And what are some of the issues from your advocacy and your experience as a public health practitioner? What are some of the issues related to the state of basic health care in Nigeria? We can hear you. Can you unmute your mic so that we can have a smooth conversation, so that we can hear you clearly? If you can hear me now.
All right, thank you guys. Can you hear me now? All right. So basic health is really sad. Like I said earlier, healthcare sector in Nigeria is actually really struggling, and it's getting worse and worse by the day. With so many things happening in the country right now. So if you're talking about access to healthcare, it means timely use of personal health services to achieve the best health outcomes at the time you need it. Timely use of healthcare services to achieve the best outcome. And if you're talking about timely use of healthcare services, it also has some components which involve covering the services that you need to actually access the timeliness and the structure. So, if all this is not in place, people might not be able to access the way they should. Now, I would love it that government should uh, encourage the health insurance in Nigeria more, because coverage is something we are very health coverage, accessibility, how people can actually get into the health facility to access healthcare. If you ask a woman now a pregnant woman to go to the hospital and register for antenatal, for instance, the first thing that will come to her mind is, there is no money to pay for consultation, you pay for this, you pay for that, and everything. So when they think about the financial implication of the registration they have to do in the hospital and everything, that discourages them and they don't want to go. So, but if we have health insurance, which I know we have in Nigeria, but the advocacy and the publicity for health insurance is not really going very wide. Most people still don't know. Personally, I was talking to some people about health insurance just few weeks ago, and a lot of them don't know about health insurance. The ordinary Nigerian in the village, the ordinary Nigerian even in urban areas, the ordinary pepper seller on the street don't know about health insurance. They don't even know that something like that is existing in Nigeria, where they can actually pay a certain amount of money that will cover their healthcare service for 1 year, for a period of 1 year. And when you pay that certain amount of money, which you can actually pay, which is affordable, you'll be able to go to the hospital and register for antenatal care when you're pregnant. You can take your child to the hospital when the child is sick and the child will not have to die before the age 5 years. You'll be able to access care, your husband, yourself, and your children. So I believe one of the things you can do is for us to really increase the volume of health insurance in Nigeria. This is one of the things that is helping them in other countries. So this will help us with the issue of coverage as far as health accessibility is concerned. Now we have the issue of timeliness. The question is, do we have healthcare professionals on ground to attend to cases at the time they really need it? Do women have the opportunity to access healthcare at the time they really need it before things go haywire, before things get bad for them and the child? It's also very important. Now, the healthcare system is also nursing personnel. And that comes from the angle of workforce of healthcare nurses and doctors we have on ground. In a typical PHC, that's primary health care center, which is the lowest arm of the healthcare umbrella, like talking about something that the ordinary Nigerian, the average Nigerian can still afford. At least if they can't go to the tertiary and the state level, they can still access care at the primary health care center, in their local government, in their street, in their locality, and the like. But the question is, when they get there, how many healthcare professionals will they need there? How many doctors will you find there? How many registered nurses will you find? How many qualified healthcare professionals will you find? Workforce, the workforce in the healthcare industry in Nigeria today is really, really low. In fact, it's really something to cry about, because healthcare professionals are leaving. So if we are short-staffed at the tertiary level, what about the primary level? If the tertiary level, which is big, that can even be short-staffed, the primary level will not be an exception. In fact, it will even be worse in the primary level. So the healthcare professionals that are on ground are not enough to cater for the number of pregnant women that we have to take care of. So this now brings me to the idea of us not just helping the healthcare sector, like the equipment, drugs and everything, NHIS and all that, but also taking good care of the professionals. If the professionals are well taken care of, if the professionals are getting good remuneration, if the professionals are treated well, I believe they will not stay. The Japa syndrome is not something that, if I say, a big problem that has a lot of factors coming together to make up the problem. But I can only talk from the healthcare professional angle because I am one. It is so bad that even people like us who are in the society, helping with the public health awareness, giving health software and there and all that, I even get people asking me to, that what am I doing in Nigeria? That why am I still around? Why have I not left? And I'm like, okay, so if we all live, who takes care of the people? If we all live just like that, who will do this that some of us are still doing? So it's really alarming.
Thank you for choosing to stay, and thanks to several of your colleagues too who have also chosen to stay and not Jakpa. But the thing is, for those in the rural areas, there is also the some of them choose to patronize the local midwives. Is there a way to have some synergy between those in the healthcare profession and the local midwives to provide some form of training? Because where you have them, even in the urban areas, you still have local midwives, and you have persons who prefer, maybe for financial reasons or orientation, choose to patronize the local midwives, so that whoever handles a pregnant woman, whoever gives care to a pregnant woman, is giving the right kind of care. Is a synergy like that possible to happen?
For the traditional
I believe there are many for that, because I have heard of some trainings being organized, seminars, workshops being organized for traditional birth attendants in rural areas, even in the urban areas too, so they can be trained. We are not we are not against what they do, because of course in the olden days, before we have the kind of medicine we have now, there was herbs and roots which was working for people now, especially if it is well done, so, but the right training can be given to these people and they will definitely do it right. But the question is, will they attend? Would they be receptive of it? Will they embrace the idea? You know, training, it's not like you want to train them to do what they already know how to do, but we have to train how they can, the kind of equipment they should use, how they can ensure that the woman does not get infected after childbirth, you know, sanitation, hygiene, you know, and all this other, a lot of things, because so many things they do, they don't even have rationale for what they do, but they just have to do it and they do it, you know, so they can actually be trained on some measures to take to ensure that we reduce the rate of maternal and child mortality in the country. So yes, there can be a synergy if the two parties can cooperate. If the professionals are ready to train the TBAs, why not? If the TBAs are ready to receive the training, why not? They can be trained. We can train them. In fact, I can train if they want to. So it is possible. There can actually be a kind of synergy.
Right. In the course of your public health advocacy, I would like you to talk from experience. What are some of the common mistakes, some errors being made by mothers, it could even be by fathers or parents, that are also contributing to the high rate of infant mortality in Nigeria? What are some of these mistakes? It could be neglect or whatever it is, but from your experience, talk to us about some of these common errors and neglect.
Yes, some of such common errors. Sorry, can you hear me?
Hey, please go ahead.
Okay, so thank you for that question. I have mentioned some of them during the course of my presentation so far, but I also mentioned some more. So some of such common errors being made by mothers and even fathers, because we should not, I love the fact that you even mentioned fathers too, because we must not leave them out of this talk, because when I do get pregnant on their own also, so it takes two to tango, so they should be involved. And one of the major ways a man should be involved in pregnancy of his wife is the emotional care and the psychological stability for the woman. It is unfortunate that there are so many women out there today who are in abusive marriage, who are experiencing domestic violence in their marriage, and even in pregnancy, they tend to experience it, which turns the child in advance. You know, I have seen cases, heard of cases of a woman being beaten, pregnant woman being beaten by her husband, you know, being abused by her husband. We had to bring out the child to save the child, and the child ended up being a full-term baby, and it took a lot of effort to make sure that the child survives it at the end of the day. So, by emotional stability for their wives when they are pregnant, you know, when a woman is pregnant, she her body goes through so many kinds of so many forms of transfer.
Thank you very much, Mary Agolo, for being with
away
us on the show today. She's been talking about infant mortality with us today. We appreciate your contributions. I do hope that mothers and even fathers have learned something today about how to care for the unborn and even the infant when they're born. Let's go on a quick break and then turn to another aspect of infant mortality. Stay tuned.
My name is Olatunji Shoti Miri. I'm a performing artist and, you know, television radio presenter and a university lecturer, Unilag. Keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Black, Africa's finest music comedian, and you're watching Sook News. If you're not watching Sook News, I pity you. But keep watching Sook News.
Hello everyone, my name is Timmy Dakolo and you're watching Sook News. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Wisdom Oluwaseun Okoko, co-founder Orbit Africa Properties. I'm live at Sook News. Guys, keep watching Sook News. For everything that concerns business, economy, politics, news, Sook News is your station.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you are on to Souk News. If you are watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it because this is Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souk News. Here's the Souk News who had the courage to transcend a locked off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, Souk News. Thank you very much.
You want to advertise your product?
Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Eche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
Government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil.
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, is abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Many thanks for being there. It's still Early Exchange, and the focus today is infant mortality. Now, while our previous guest who just ran it off was talking to us about some of the risk factors and the reason why we have, why sub-Saharan Africa has the highest burden when it comes to the statistics for infant mortality, you could see, Femi, that some of these things are caused by ignorance, lack of education, and some beliefs that have been held onto over the years, particularly in the rural areas. Some persons would tell you, oh, that if a woman is pregnant, she has to take this, she has to take that. But how healthy is that substance, or how healthy what she consumes is for the baby? They really can't tell. But they will just tell you, oh, our forefathers used to take this. Our mothers took this while they were pregnant with us, things like that, such beliefs. And even the aspect of hygiene. I don't actually think that poverty should go hand in hand with poor sanitation, because it's a choice. You can choose to have your environment clean. Because if you look at some of the things that you go through some of the things that she talked about, malaria is a big threat, particularly for a woman who is pregnant. And malaria thrives in an environment that is dirty, where you have stagnant water, you have grasses that are not cut. So it's a breeding ground for mosquitoes. So it's something that people can actually do their bit to prevent. Agree that health facilities may not be available as they should be in some areas, but everyone has a responsibility keeping your environment clean, ensuring that when the woman is pregnant, she's registered in a healthcare facility that has qualified hands, because that's another thing too. You could be going to a health facility, but do they have the quality hands to attend? That's where the regulatory authorities should come in.
In fact, that's the basic problem: access to basic health care, especially in the rural areas. For people in the city, maybe the nearness to the fact that they're in the city, that the proximity could be an advantage. But for those who are in the remote areas or in the villages, it's also a challenge. But largely, the genesis of the problem is more of lack of education, largely illiteracy. You are always a victim of what you don't know. Some of those people, they don't know.
No,
Even
yes.
in the kind of environment they find themselves, because they've been used to some practices, some systemic errors. Over the years, they are used to it, so they feel it's right.
Normal.
So it becomes norm. So another issue has to do with the issue of, parental failure. I'm happy she talked about the role of fathers and the role of mothers. Likely some of these things are left for mothers, but fathers still have roles to play, because when it comes to parenting, it's a two-way thing.
Yes.
You are there as a father to provide the necessary support for the mother. She made reference to a situation or an example where a woman was supposed to go through CS, and the husband insisted, no, this will not happen. And eventually they lost the baby.
Religious beliefs.
Religious believed it to archaic beliefs or lack of education, lack of exposure. And eventually they lost the baby. So you discover that it's a whole lot of factors, but basically because it is high in Africa due to high rate of poverty, you have a situation where a mother knows she ought to breastfeed the baby, but that's a mother who hasn't eaten a meal for a day or two. And then how will she be in best position to feed the baby? The issue of exclusive breastfeeding is another issue. You have the mother who is maybe the working class, who have to go to work, leaves very early in the morning.
The job or the business becomes a challenge.
Becomes a challenge. And so I'm happy in recent times that some, state governments are coming up with initiatives for, as long as you are having maternity leave, you're also having provision for paternity leave. So it means while the mother is at home taking care of the baby, the husband too, or the father can be there to provide support. So at that period, it's easier. If your maternity leave is just for 2 months and you're asking the mother to breastfeed for at least 6 months for exclusive breastfeeding, which is needed for the baby at that stage to boost the immune system, because at that stage, the state of the immune system of the baby is very, very important. So if you ask the mother to sit at home for 6 months to do exclusive breastfeeding, the question will be, how will you be able to sustain that? So that's why it's important that apart from providing systemic problem, the government also has to provide the right policy. So I'm happy some state governments are coming up with this policy to support paternity leave for men or fathers, so that they will be in position to provide not just the financial support, also the moral support, even the emotional support at that period for that mother to be able to play a role, and then it also contribute to the issue of survival of that kid at that stage.
Yes, there's more to talk about as it concerns infant mortality, but that will be after this break. Stay tuned.
My name is Olatunji Shoti Miri. I'm a performing artist and, television radio presenter and a university lecturer, Unilag. Keep watching Souk News.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Black, Africa's finest music comedian, and you're watching Souk News. If you're not watching Souk News, I pity you, but keep watching Souk News.
Hello everyone, my name is Timmy Dakolo, and you're watching Souk News. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Wisdom Oluwaseun Okoko, co-founder Orbit Africa Properties. I'm live at Souk News. Guys, keep watching Souk News. For everything that concerns business, economy, politics, news, Souk News is your station.
Stunting as it concerns infant mortality, and we have Dr. Jolly Iguma of Jonas Medical Center joining us virtually this morning to talk about it. Good morning, Dr. Jolly.
Pleasure.
Can you please unmute your mic so that we can hear you clearly? Okay. All right, good to see you. Welcome to Early Exchange.
Yes, it's a pleasure meeting with you.
So we're looking at infant mortality, and from all we've discussed so far, we understand that there are different factors that could result in an infant not making it to 1 month, 1 year, or even 5 years, as the case may be. And key amongst them is malnutrition. Could you take us through the process, how it affects the child?
Food is very essential for the growth and the supply of nutrients, for the functionality of the organ, tissue, and system of the body. So the baby have to grow, and the food have to supply nourishment, I said. So when the baby, a newborn, whether a neonate or an infant, or generally under 5, they're not getting the right food. It's not just food, but food that contain all the right nutrients in the right proportion, what we call a balanced diet. So you expect such a child, such a baby or such a newborn not to grow very well. And when they're not growing very well, there's bound to be a cell death. And when there's a cell death, there's going to be a stunted growth. And the stunted growth, of course, will result to the collapse of, or a shutdown of the organ, which will result to the death of the baby. So that is why we advocate that for the death or mortality. So in fact, nutrition is very important for the growth of the baby, as well as preventing infection, disease, which is capable of causing early death of a newborn.
All right. The advocacy for exclusive breastfeeding has been trailed with mixed reactions. There are people who argue that the economic reality do not support that. There are some who say, looking at the environmental factor, what kind of intervention will encourage the issue of exclusive breastfeeding in a place like Nigeria?
Yes, you see, the truth of the matter is that not every women are working in the public sector. Governments have played their own part to ensure that women who work in the public sector, they are giving what we call 3 months maternity leave. Even in some, organized private sectors, they also do it for, women. This is to enable them, other than the fact that it creates a bond between the newborn and the mother, it also gives enough time for the mother to breastfeed the baby. Because the mother have to sit at home, eat, drink, take good food so that she can be able to breastfeed the baby. But in other sector, maybe those who are into, a private job, or those who are on their own, as the case may be. So that time might not be there. You see mother giving birth, after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, she's, already leaving the baby, with a nanny or a caregiver, there to make a living for herself as a way of meeting up to the, to our personal needs. So this might shortchange and make, the mother not be able to do the needful by, breastfeeding the baby, thereby causing malnutrition to this baby. Because, like as I said earlier on, this maternity leave that the public sector or the organized private sector give to their workers, that is the female per se, is to actually allow the women to breastfeed their baby so as to protect the baby from infection and to prevent a stunted growth. That is why this is put in place.
Talking about breastfeeding, some women will say that when the baby grows to maybe 3-4 months, and particularly when it's of the male gender, that the breast milk at some point doesn't become sufficient for the baby, so they need to complement with formulas and other kinds of food. Is this true?
Well, that actually boils down to the feeding of the mother. For mothers who are well fed, you expect the breast to lactate, even beyond 6 months, because it's not just 6 months that the mother just stopped breastfeeding. Sometimes we advise that the mother can even breastfeed up to 2 years, as the case may be. So mothers who are not well fed, these are the women that though naturally some women, especially those newly parents, those who are giving birth for the first time, but those who are giving birth for twice or thrice, as the case may be, the more your parity, the more you give birth, the more likely you are going to have a free flow of breast milk, from your mixture. So taking good foods will actually, allow proper flow of, milk from the breast. So it's only when mothers are not well fed, or maybe they are stressed up because of a job or other daily activities, that is when you expect their, milk, their breast not to lactate very well. But when they stay at home, when they eat very well, of course, there is no doubt that exclusive breastfeeding, that is breastfeeding for 6 months, is very important. And the mestier or the breast have to lactate very well when the mother is, well fed and stayed, for rest, as the case may be.
Now, for parents or mothers or fathers who are watching, I would like you to educate us on some of the basic nutrients needed by babies, at this stage, and the impact on their survival or their health, or the tendency for them to survive at that infancy. What would be the impact of these nutrients? Maybe you talk about the composition, the impact, and also the chances that it will help them survive at that stage of infancy.
Yes, the reason why we actually advocate the breast milk for babies is to allow proper growth and also to give immunity to the baby as a way of preventing disease and infection. So the breast milk actually contains these required nutrients, usually protein. So the protein is one constituent of the breast milk. So babies need protein to grow, for the replacement of one heart tissue. Not only that, water is also a component of the breast milk. So water is very important for the growth, for enzymatic action of the body is very important. Not only that, there is also a carbohydrate, but in a very minute form, which is also a constituent of the breast milk. The vitamins too. Those vitamins are also constituent of the breast milk. So in summary, for babies to grow, they need lactogen, which is a form of milk proteins. That is the main ingredient that is required for the growth of a newborn. And this lactogen cannot be gotten elsewhere but from animal. And man is the major supplier of this protein, though cow can also supply it. That is why even most of those artificial infant milk are also gotten from the cow, from the cow milk, as the case may be. So that is the lactogen, which is the protein, the milk protein, as the case may be.
Okay, looking at stunted growth, what is what should be the average weight of a baby? So how do you know that, this child is underweight, is having stunted growth, and the interventions to do to ensure that that child is able to go through that stage and grow normally? Let's assume that a child is already been stunted. What are the features you would see to know that, this child is not growing well?
Firstly, we have to do this assessment at birth. That is at the 0 day. Once a child is giving birth to, when the baby is giving birth to, because medically when we talk about child is from the age of 12 months. For 12 months, we talk about child. Then from 0 to 28 days, for the first 1 month, we use the word neonate. So for a baby that is just giving birth to, we take the weight of that baby. So the baby should be 2.5 kg to 3.9 kg. That is the normal weight of the baby. 2.5 kg to 3.9 kg. That is the average weight of the newborn. And after 6 months, we expect the weight of that newborn to double. What I'm trying to say is that if a baby is 2.5 kg at birth, at 6 months, it's supposed to be 5 kg. That is, it has doubled. But in the case of a stunted growth, or maybe the baby is not having what we call a kwashiorkor or marasmus, so you expect some physical changes from that baby. You can see that the baby might not be growing well, as evidenced by maybe the head not getting very big, maybe the eye getting sunken, or the leg getting very thin, the face getting very thin, the abdomen getting protruded. And this is very common in African community, usually the rural area. Like those women who face insurgency or because of, food starvation and the like. So these are some of the things that you see in those areas. And the government, of course, have to do more advocacy to ensuring that women have to learn how to breastfeed their baby. And for them to do so, foods have to be made available for the women. It's only women that are fed well that can also feed their baby as a way of meeting up this, growth, and as a way of preventing disease and infection from, affecting those babies, to ensuring proper growth.
All right, we're still looking at the issue of infant mortality. I would like you to talk about some of the basic vaccines or medical interventions, or if there are supplements or medical supplements that should be administered to babies at this stage to prevent infant mortality.
Yes, to combating the infant mortality or death of a newborn is actually a multi-sectoral, approach with which the government have to play their role, then the parents too have to play their role. And one of the roles that the government have been playing over the years is to ensuring that babies are well vaccinated as a way of preventing, disease of the childhood, which includes tuberculosis, measles, diphtheria, diarrhea, even xerophthemia, what we call vitamin A deficiency. So at birth, babies should take BCG to prevent them from tuberculosis. Not only that, babies will also take what we call the DPT, which prevent at 6 weeks, which prevent them from diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus. All these are killer diseases that affect children. So at that early stage of life, governments are put things in place to ensure that babies get those immunization as a way of getting a form of, artificial immunity against those diseases, which, are capable of causing death to the newborn because of their, low immunity. Not only that, children also get vitamin A supplement, as I said earlier on. Vitamin A is very important and is given orally at 9 months and 12 months of age. Because babies who don't get this vitamin A as a form of a booster is also capable of causing mortality in this underage group.
All right, quickly, let's look at some of the diseases and the time of the year they occur. I know that diarrhea is one disease that children battle with. So what should mothers know about some of these diseases and the time they come in, and preventive measures?
Yes, diarrhea has been reported as one of the killer diseases affecting under 5 age. If we talk about infant mortality and we don't talk about diarrhea, it means we have not exhausted the causes of under age, or the under 5, the cause of under 5 deaths. So diarrhea, of course, is one of the killer disease in children. This diarrhea, of course, is an infectious disease and is very common in children between the age of 2 to 5 years. For the reason that in this age group, they are not prone to, walking around, maybe crawling. So whatever they touch, it will always end up in their mouth. Even sometimes, because of the poor, environmental sanitation or poor hygiene, as the case may be, dirty environment, poor water supply, contaminated water, infection, bacterial infection, viral cholera, and the like, they can get in contact with it, thereby, causing this diarrhea, which will, manifest as vomiting, passage of frequent stool, and sometimes a feverish condition. In fact, at any point in time, the mother noticed that the baby, whether at 2 months or at 3 months or at 6 months, as the case may be, is now passing stool more than 3 times in a day, and the stool is becoming watery, and the baby too is also vomiting. That is already a diarrhea until proven otherwise. And diarrhea, of course, is an infectious disease, and it's one of the causes of infant mortality, which is very common in our environment. So there are strategies put in place. There are things the mother can do to reduce the complications of this diarrhea, because one of the complications of this diarrhea is dehydration. Because once a baby starts vomiting, starts stooling, so you expect that baby to start losing water. So this loss of fluid is what actually results to death. So mothers are advised to prepare what we call the salt sugar solution. This can actually be done at home. Telling mothers about infant mortality, of course, telling them how to prevent or do some treatment at home, like this treatment of diarrhea, is another way of combating the infant mortality. As I said earlier on, what mothers can do at home when they notice their babies now having frequent stooling or vomiting excessively, because this might result to dehydration, which is capable of causing death, is that they have to produce what we call the salt sugar solution. Though the salt sugar solution is a form of ORS, which can be gotten in most pharmacy shop or a chemist shop, as the case may be. But however,
we're already out of time. We should have more to talk about this. But that tip you've given already is very beneficial for a lot of mothers. And I know that they can get more when they consult their doctor. So the lesson is not to just, once you notice that, like you said, is a signal. So they need to attend to it quickly by either doing what you just said, the salt and sugar solution, or take the baby to the hospital. Thank you very much, Dr. Jolly Nusa Iguma, Chief Medical Director, Jonas Medical Center, for being with us on Early Exchange today.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, that's been the show today. Thank you so much for your time with us. We ask again for your company tomorrow as the show will begin 7 a.m. West African time. Iron Blessing AG. Coming up at 10 o'clock here in Sook News is Business Insight. To stay with Sook News and enjoy your day.
Don't forget, the advocacy and the conversation continue on our social media platform. I am Femi Ayodele. Bye for now.